When we think of ancient Rome, we picture mighty legions marching across dusty battlefields, their armor gleaming in the sun, their banners fluttering in the wind. The Roman army wasn't just powerful, it was revolutionary. It built an empire that stretched across 3 continents and lasted for centuries. But Rome didn't win its wars just through numbers or discipline. It won because it was clever, because its weapons and technology were far ahead of their time. Some of these weapons were brutal, others were brilliantly simple, but all of them changed the way wars were fought, not just in ancient times, but for generations afterward. So today, let's dive into 7 Roman weapons so clever they changed warfare forever. The first is perhaps the most iconic, the gladius. The gladius was short, deadly, and efficient. To most people, it just looks like a simple sword, but it was carefully designed for the way Roman soldiers fought. Unlike the long slashing swords used by the Celts or the Greeks, the gladius was built for stabbing. It was only about 2 feet long, which made it perfect for close combat. Roman soldiers fought in tight formations called the testudo, or tortoise formation, where each man's shield overlapped with the next. There wasn't much room to swing a sword, but the gladius didn't need space. A quick thrust between shields could pierce an enemy's armor, and a few well-aimed stabs could turn a line of enemies into chaos. What made the gladius revolutionary wasn't just its size, it was the mindset behind it. The Romans realized that discipline and teamwork mattered more than wild swordsmanship. A Roman legionnaire was trained to strike, step back, and let his comrade take the next blow. Together, they moved like a machine. And that little sword, the gladius, was the perfect gear in that deadly machine. Next, there's the pilum, the Roman spear that broke armies before the fighting even began. At first glance, the pilum looked ordinary, a wooden shaft with an iron tip, but it had one genius feature. The tip was designed to bend on impact. When a Roman soldier threw his pilum, it would pierce the enemy's shield, and then the metal would bend, making it impossible to pull out or throw back. The shield became useless, forcing the enemy to drop it and fight defenseless. Imagine being on the front line, holding a heavy shield, and suddenly having a Roman spear jammed through it. You couldn't throw it aside fast enough before the legion advanced. That's what the pilum did. It disrupted enemy formations, broke their defenses, and created panic just moments before hand-to-hand combat began. No other army at the time used anything like it. The pilum wasn't just a weapon, it was psychological warfare. Then there was the scutum, the Roman shield that turned soldiers into an unstoppable wall. The scutum was large, curved, and rectangular, made of wood covered with leather and iron. It wasn't just for defense, it was a key part of Rome's fighting style. In formation, Roman soldiers locked their scuta together to form a solid wall that could withstand arrows, spears, and even charging cavalry. When attacking fortresses, they used the famous testudo, the tortoise formation, where the front row held their shields forward and the men behind raised theirs overhead, forming a shell of protection. From above, it looked like a moving roof of shields. Arrows bounced harmlessly off, and the Romans advanced inch by inch until they reached the enemy's walls. The scutum changed warfare because it wasn't just a piece of equipment, it was a symbol of teamwork. Every shield depended on the others. A single Roman soldier was strong, but together, a legion behind their scuta was nearly unstoppable. Another incredible weapon wasn't even handheld. It was engineered. The ballista was one of Rome's most feared siege weapons. Think of it as a giant crossbow, powered by twisted ropes of sinew that stored massive amounts of energy. When released, it could launch huge bolts or stones with terrifying speed and accuracy. The ballista could pick off enemy soldiers from hundreds of meters away, smash through walls, or bring down siege towers. Roman engineers improved on Greek designs, making the ballista more accurate and easier to transport. In a siege, you might hear a deep snap echo across the battlefield, and then see a massive spear the size of a tree trunk slam into a wall or pierce 3 men at once. The ballista gave Rome a new kind of power, the power to dominate from a distance. It turned sieges into precise operations instead of chaotic assaults. and it showed how advanced Roman engineering truly was. But even the ballista had a deadlier cousin, the onager. The onager was a type of catapult that hurled heavy stones or fireballs at enemy walls. The name onager means wild donkey because when it fired, it kicked backward violently, like a bucking animal. It was simple but devastating. Roman engineer used tension and torsion, ropes twisted tightly, to power the arm that flung the projectile. The onager could smash gates, shatter towers, or rain fire on enemy camps. During sieges, it was both a weapon and a tool of terror. You didn't just fight the Romans. You watched your city walls crumble before they even reached you. What made both the ballista and the onager remarkable was Rome's ability to mass-produce them. They weren't rare or exotic. Every legion had access to siege engineers, carpenters, and blacksmiths who could build and repair these weapons on the move. That kind of military logistics was unheard of in the ancient world. But the Romans didn't rely only on brute power. They used clever innovations too, like the corvus. The corvus was a game changer in naval warfare. Early Rome wasn't a naval superpower, it was a land empire. When they first faced Carthage in the Punic Wars, they were completely outmatched at sea. So they invented something that turned sea battles into land battles, something they were much better at. The corvus was a massive boarding bridge attached to Roman ships. It had a sharp spike at the end. When a Roman ship got close to an enemy vessel, the crew dropped the corvus down, the spike hooked into the enemy's deck, and Roman soldiers ran across to fight hand-to-hand. The enemy sailors didn't stand a chance. The Romans had turned sea combat, which required skilled maneuvering and ramming tactics, into infantry combat, where they excelled. With the corvus, they won battles they should have lost and established control over the Mediterranean. That's how clever Rome was. They didn't just fight harder, they fought smarter. Another brilliant but lesser-known Roman invention was the plumbata, a kind of throwing dart. It looked simple, but it was deadly in the hands of a trained soldier. The plumbata had a lead weight near its tip, giving it extra range and force. Roman troops could carry several of them attached to their shields, ready to throw before the enemy closed in. Unlike arrows, the plumbata didn't need a bow. Each soldier became his own artillery unit. They could throw in volleys, raining darts on the enemy before charging. The weighted tips could pierce armor or shields, and because they were silent and fast, they caused panic and confusion. The plumbata showed that the Romans never stopped innovating. Even in the later days of the empire, they were still finding ways to adapt. And finally, there was something that wasn't exactly a weapon, but it made all their weapons far more effective: Roman engineering itself. The Romans built roads, bridges, and fortifications like no one else. Their roads allowed entire armies to move quickly across vast distances. Their forts were designed to be built fast and strong, giving them secure bases anywhere in the world. They created siege ramps, tunnels, and even mobile towers to breach enemy defenses. For the Romans, engineering was a weapon. Every stone they laid, every mile of road they paved, gave them an advantage. Enemies fought with passion, Rome fought with planning, and that's why they won. These 7 innovations, from the deadly gladius and pilum to the mighty onager and ingenious corvus, weren't just tools. They were expressions of a mindset. The Romans believed that order, discipline, and ingenuity could conquer chaos. They saw war not just as a contest of strength, but as a science. It's easy to see their weapons as relics of the past, but their influence lives on. The idea of organized formations, heavy infantry tactics, and engineered siege machines all trace back to Roman thought. Even modern military strategy, the emphasis on logistics, infrastructure, and adaptation, comes straight from Rome's playbook. What made the Romans so successful wasn't that they invented everything themselves. It was that they perfected what others had started. They took ideas from Greece, Carthage, and even their enemies, then improved them until they were unstoppable. The Roman army didn't just fight battles, it built a system that could wage war anywhere, anytime, against anyone. And behind every victory was a clever idea, a piece of iron, wood, or rope, turned into something extraordinary.